Um, we're missing. Hello, welcome. Thank you all for being here today. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of South San Mateo County, I'd like to welcome the candidates and you, the audience, to this public forum for County Board of Supervisors, District 4. My name is Lisa Conrad, and I'm a League volunteer, and I'll be the moderator today. I'd like to take a moment to thank the people who made this forum possible today. Connie Guerrero with our League. And our sponsors, Peninsula Asian Voter Education, Jeff G., also Mayor of Redwood City. Japanese American Citizens League, Steve Okamoto. And the Organization of Chinese Americans, Amy Yan. And I believe I'd like to say something.
We'll be brief. I know time is short.
Yeah.
Well, good morning, everyone, and I want to thank the candidates too and the League for being a partner in this. I'm going to make it really brief. PAVE, Peninsula Asian for Voter Education, we're all nonprofits, and as the largest cultural demographic in San Mateo County, we need to show up more at the ballot box. Not only the Asian community, the PI community, the Japanese community, we all need to raise our voice because voting matters. So it's an honor to be a partner, and it's an honor to be a partner with the League. Thank you, Lisa.
Did anyone else have, yeah.
Good morning. I want to first thank the League of Women Voters for putting up this forum. These types of events are so important, and I really want to thank you so much. Also, to the candidates, I'm sure you would rather be here than anywhere else, right? Anyway, my name is Steve Okamoto. I am the president of the San Mateo chapter of the JACL. JACL stands for Japanese American Citizens League. And we are the oldest Asian civil rights organization in the country. We started in 1929. Our charter does not allow us to endorse any specific candidate, but certainly we support events like this. So thank you, League of Women Voters.
Amy also?
I'm Amy Yan, and I'm with the Organization of Chinese Americans, OCA, Asian Pacific American Advocates. And we're a national organization with local chapters, and we are also volunteers, and we're the second oldest to the JACL. We were established in 1973, and our local chapter, our first event is a Lunar New Year banquet in San Mateo, and I would like to invite all of you, the candidates, as well as our audience here, to participate, to join us celebrating the Year of the Dragon, and it will be in South San Francisco, and it's a networking event for different API organizations as well as API businesses and anyone who wants to learn more about the API community. So please join us. I have flyers. I'll have some flyers in the back, and I'll be in the back. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'd like to say a little bit about League of Women Voters. We're a national political organization of women and men. We're nonpartisan. We do not support or oppose candidates for office or political parties. We do work to influence public policy through advocacy and education. Our education mission is to encourage your active and informed participation in government at every level. Our interest is in helping voters gain fair and unbiased information in order to make an informed decision on Election Day, which is coming up March 5th. In addition to this forum, I encourage you to visit the League of Women Voters election website, www.vote411.org, and you have each seat got a bookmarker with that information, and you can look up your ballot, and it'll have all the candidates and measures on your ballot. So to begin, I'd like to ask everyone to please turn off your cell phones. And this event is being recorded, and you'll be able to view it on the League's YouTube channel and probably some other. So our format is each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. Written questions will be taken from you, the audience. We've already gotten quite a few. And if you have a question, raise your hand, and one of the volunteers who raise their hands now, one of our volunteers will bring you a card. Please write your question down, and when you're done, just hold the card up, and the volunteer will collect it and bring it up here. This allows us to cover a wide range of issues and also to be sure the questions are not speeches and not redundant. And each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Joyce Shuffrin, a league member, is our timekeeper. She's sitting in front, and she'll be timing each speaker and will hold up a sign at 1 minute, hold up a sign at 30 seconds, and then she'll wave the flag when you need to stop. So I'd like to ask the candidates, please do not exceed your time limit. Okay, and we have question sorters, also league volunteers, Shirley DeMarais and Debbie Mayo, helping me out here. And they go through the questions, make sure we don't have a redundancy. So we have 5 candidates running for 1 seat on the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. And the candidates, I'm going in alphabetical order by last name, and please hold your applause till I've announced them all. We have Paul Bocanegra, Celeste Brevard, Maggie Cornejo, Lisa Gaucher, and Antonio Lopez. The candidates drew numbers to determine their seating position, and opening statements will go in that order. Then closing statements will be in the reverse order. And then I will rotate through the order for the questions. This is our standard league format we do to keep things equitable. So please go ahead and write questions and get the cards, and we will get started with the candidates' opening statements. First speaker is Paul Bocanegra. Push the button at the bottom.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the forum that was put together by the League of Women Voters. I want to thank everyone here from the community who has come out to listen to the vision that all of us bring, that we would like to bring to District 4. My name is Paul Bocanegra. I'm 48 years old, married. I live in Eagle Hill with my wife and my 5 German Shepherds. I am a survivor of the school-to-prison pipeline. I am the son of immigrants, child laborers, and they watched their son become a child prisoner and condemned for a crime he did not commit. I served 25.5 years in the school-to-prison pipeline for a crime I did not commit. The Democratic Party, through Senate Bill 9, saved my life. Upon reintegrating into my community, I joined the Democratic Party and began to work. Some of the things that I have done is I've become a certified drug and alcohol counselor where I work with the community. Co-founded Re-Evolution, a nonprofit that works with system-impacted kids and foster kids, as well as adults reintegrating. I am also a sitting Juvenile Justice Delinquency and Prevention Commissioner for the County of San Mateo, where I work with the probation department to ensure that our kids are receiving the rehabilitation and constitutional treatment that they deserve. And I'm also a state delegate and have written legislation and got it passed to Senator Josh Becker with his help. Free phone calls, a law and a policy that took a lot from my family, a lot of debt, and thousands of us that were trapped in the school-to-prison pipelines because of the discriminatory laws that sent us there. We changed that. We recently capped canteen and other price gouging policy that they use on people of color. And so since coming home, I've worked on the ICE ordinance, dismantling the school-to-prison pipeline, as well as civilian oversight. Played many roles on issues that are plaguing our community across the county, but I will stop there.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you all for being here. Thank you for the League of Women Voters. My name is Lisa Gaucher. I am a longtime resident of East Palo Alto and San Mateo County. I was first elected to East Palo Alto City Council after being encouraged by my daughter in 2012. I've served as mayor and vice mayor 3 times each, and I continue to give to the community. In addition to being an elected official, I'm currently serving as the senior vice president of inclusion and belonging with the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, which is one of the largest business associations in the region. I lead a team there where we work on policy and initiatives that impact workforce development, education, racial justice and equity, and health. In addition, I sit on many boards on the region. I am a founding board member for One Shoreline, where we're looking to address the sea level rise and climate issues that are impacting our region. I also sit and I'm the chair of the Health Trust in San Jose, where we're dealing with underserved communities to ensure that their health is taken care of, food insecurity is being addressed, diabetes issues as well as HIV. I'm also a board member or the board chair for an organization, Live in Peace, where students who the school district would have given up on and they wouldn't have graduated, young people are graduating from high school, they're going to college, and they're coming back with careers. I have the experience, I've been around, and I'm looking forward to hearing your questions today. And another thing that's important to me, I want to make sure that voters and residents believe in government, because there are a lot of people today that don't believe that that government will work for them, and we need to change that. Thank you.
Well said, Councilmember. I want to thank all the candidates for showing up and just energizing the vote. That's the most important thing, y'all, getting our community to vote for this year. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Antonio Lopez. I'm a proud product of Mexican immigrants. Fun fact, my dad came in the same week the city of East Palo Alto became incorporated in 1983. He was 18 years old. 40 years later, the fact that we don't have homicides in our city is an example of the kind of leadership that we want to bring to this county. I learned as a kid the value of hard work, of education. I was the first in my family to go to college. I graduated from Duke University, went to Oxford for my master's, and then in 2020, during the pandemic, I saw a challenge. I saw black bags on the street. I saw furniture. We saw the pandemic come out, and for me, as someone who was so privileged and fortunate to be from East Palo Alto, I felt a responsibility, particularly the younger generation, to step up and make a difference because our community was struggling. One of the first things I did as council member has been elected, helping to work with the state and local county officials to get vaccinations. Really proud of the community work that helped accomplish, getting over 90% of our community vaccinated. I also worked for Senator Josh Becker for 2 years, helping to create inroads to the Latino community, because as we know, many of our communities don't, as our council member said, don't believe in government. So we need people who have the experience in state and local government to get the job done. I've also worked on a number of initiatives. I worked on 2 school bond measures to improve our local K-12 high school district, one for $161 million for Ravenswood and $500 for Sequoia Union High School District. I've also worked on public safety, helped to co-create a coalition to combat sex trafficking in our community. Many of our young women are vulnerable, and as we see and approach the Olympic Games in Santa Clara, that's something that I really want to focus on and partner with the Santa Clara County. And finally, women's rights. We know that nationwide women's rights are under attack. We have to make sure post-Dobbs that women have a right to prenatal care, early childhood care. Our aging seniors is going to double in 5 years. So we need someone who's going to really know how to needle the thread for the issues, who's passionate, who's energetic. And I humbly believe, as the Board of Supervisor, I'm going to fight for affordable housing, making sure we tackle this enormous crisis that we're seeing on the 880 and the 580. People driving hours from Sacramento, from Tracy, from Stockton. So I look forward to the conversation. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being safe. And I look forward to this forum.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum. I'm so glad that this is at the Fair Oaks Community Center. I've had so much history in this room providing workshops for our community. So I grew up in District 4. I'm the proud daughter of Mexican immigrants, and I've personally experienced a lot of the challenges that our residents have faced when it comes to food insecurity, poverty, housing insecurity, immigration status issues, and the list goes on and on. I am the proud product of Garfield School and Menlo Atherton High School from the Sequoia Union High School District. I was born in North Fair Oaks, and I am currently a resident in Redwood City. And growing up, being first generation, I had to help my family provide to their income because my family had some economical challenges. These issues have remained and have been amplified during COVID-19. Growing up in District 4, I've seen and witnessed the disparities that our residents face day in and day out, and I am running to be your next supervisor so that I can give back to that community that raised me. As your next supervisor, I will focus on the following priorities: housing for all, public safety, investment in our children and families, and combat the impacts that climate change has in our district. With nearly a decade of county government experience, including being a legislative aide for this district and working under the county manager's office, I have the experience, the background, the relationships, policy expertise to deliver from day one. It is my commitment to be your advocate and serve our community the best way possible. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. If you haven't been thanked enough, thank you so much for coming out. I know the weather has not been pleasant the last few days, and thank you so much to all of those who organized this event as well. My name is Celeste Brevard, and I am running because I have a vision for this community, one that is rooted in sustainability, more equitable societies, thriving educational institutes, affordable housing, and open communication between those that represent you and the wider community. Over the last 10 years, I've had the pleasure of working for various international organizations, including the United Nations and other businesses and private and nonprofits. Through this experience, I've been able to take my global insights and apply them to local businesses and nonprofits, always with positive outcomes. It is my pleasure to stand before you today to hear more about what you feel is impacting the society. And I believe that I can be the connector between our government officials, our private businesses, our nonprofits, and our educational institutes that are already working to solve the many problems that are facing us today. We cannot simply rely on good enough solutions to these problems that are facing not just this community, but our neighboring communities, California, and the nation as a whole. So we need somebody that can be that person to build those partnerships and execute on the issues that are facing us. I look forward to hearing from all of you, and thank you again for coming out.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Sorry, we have two mics. So to start off, we got several questions relating to API community in San Mateo. Specifically, a year ago was a tragedy in Half Moon Bay when 7 farm workers were killed. And 2 of the farm workers were Latinx and 5 were Asian. And so we have a question wondering, if you're elected, what would you do to make sure that county services are available in multiple languages to all of the county? And also, given the API community is over 32%, what specifically would you do in District 4 to engage the Asian and Pacific Islander community? And start with Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. Great question. As a juvenile justice commissioner, I have sat in the courtroom with children of different cultures. There was a youth in particular from East Palo Alto, a Tongan kid who was arrested about 1.5 years ago. His parents are immigrants, didn't have money for counsel, showed up on Zoom. This was during COVID, and they couldn't communicate or understand what was happening to their child. That also happened to myself. When I was entering the school to prison pipeline, my parents did not speak English, and they didn't also have a translator. So this is a trajectory in our state, but in our counties, of community members who immigrant not being recognized, the ability to communicate not being respected, because we have the tendency to make decisions for other people. That's why representation is so important today, because people who have been on the other end of not being able to communicate or being forced to be a translator at the age of 6, 7 years old for his parents when they were going to the doctors, is just unacceptable. It's time that all of our institutions begin to embrace the ability to acknowledge that communication is a priority, and that we begin with ethnic studies in our educational system. These are the steps that we have to take in order to acknowledge that other cultures exist, and that there is a need and a humanitarian need for them to be able to communicate their needs that they need from those of us who are representing in the community and doing the work that we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. First of all, it was tragic what happened a year ago. And it is a shame that we did not understand housing insecurities, what was happening in those communities until that tragedy happened. So it's important that we don't close a blind eye to communities that are underserved. When it comes to translation and what's important, I lead on inclusion and belonging, and it is important that we all feel like we're included in conversations. It's important to have culturally competent care and conversations. And how do we do that? We have to make sure in East Palo Alto, when we have our city council meetings, we ensure that there's translation service so that individuals can understand what's going on and they can participate in the process. We can't think that just one language is going to suffice and going to be fine for everyone. Also, as an elected official or your next board of supervisors, I will have an open door policy because it's going to be important to be able to hear from those who feel like they don't have a voice. Last night when I did an interview, it is clear that the API community, 30% and not feeling like they're represented. And that question was asked, what can we do? We can make sure doors are open. We can make sure that there are opportunities and we're having conversations about what is happening in our community. That is what I look forward to do, and that is that's important to this region as well. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, in my 4 years as a council member thus far, I've realized that when tragedy strikes, it's not just one pillar that's failed, a student or a farm worker. It's every level of government. The ABC 7 News said Kalasha is looking into this tragedy, but we all drove through Half Moon Bay. We all saw the shipping containers. We all saw the state that those farm workers were in, and we all collectively decided that's normal. So it's the supervisor's job, but it's our collective responsibility to advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves, que no hablan el idioma, who are afraid to speak out for themselves, whether it's the Nisei and the Issei Japanese American community, the Asian American community. I will never forget the moment where I went to Mexico, Oaxaca, to bury Marciano Jimenez, one of those farm workers, and I saw his family have to FaceTime the sister in the United States because why? She doesn't have papers, right? So we're in a situation where we can't even mourn our dead because of a border, because of this system. And so we're gonna need to really have leadership that's gonna work with Kalasha, gonna work with the state, is gonna provide investment, gonna work with the sheriffs to make sure that our farm workers are safe. We mentioned the Asian American community, and we know it's a big tent. And many of those community members, Filipino, Vietnamese, lower income. So let's disaggregate that data and support those small businesses. Let's support those Asian folks who are being trafficked, right? Because we have an immigrant community, like Latinos, who are afraid to speak out. When I ran for office, the first thing my father told me, no te lances, mijo, because they're gonna come after you, they're gonna target you. So our community is afraid to get politically active. This election is more than just electing a leader. It's about setting an example of the kind of county we're gonna be in. Are we gonna be reactive and wait for another gun shooting, wait for another deportation? Are we gonna actually have folks who are gonna invest in the resources to make sure that this never happens in San Mateo?
Okay, hello. Can you please repeat the question? Oh.
Sorry. Given that the API community, oh, I'm sorry. Given the API community is over 32% in San Mateo County, and talking about the anniversary of the tragedy in Half Moon Bay, where it turned out there were no county services available in languages, what would you do to fix the language problem and specifically District 4, the Asian and Pacific Islander community? What would you do to engage them?
That wasn't the question. The question was about the tragedy.
Yeah.
It was both. It was both.
Okay, thank you. So what happened last year in Half Moon Bay was horrifying, and as when I used to work as legislative aide, I worked really closely with the mobile homes in our North Fair Oaks, which had a lot of similarities, including there's members here in the public that are from that mobile home park, and the reason why I bring that up is because it's so important that those that are serving our community can speak the language of our population that we're serving. For example, me, I would communicate with our residents in Spanish, and I really believe that we need to start hiring people that can speak the language of other cultures and have a cultural understanding. I participated in hiring an outreach coordinator in the county of San Mateo that was connecting specifically with the Asian community in North County, so I think we need more of that. Because if there's no that cultural understanding, we will never get to that community. And again, I want to just recognize that there's a lot of similarities with the Asian community and the Pacific Islander community, as well as with the Latino community. They face immigration status insecurities, economical challenges. So for me, it's important that I am working with the appropriate partners in the district to better serve those who we are connecting with.
So one of the pillars of my campaign is creating a more equitable society. And I say equitable and not equal, because we don't all start from the same place, right? We don't all have the same backgrounds and the same resources. We need systems in place that will help those that are starting from a different point than the rest of us. Yes, the API community makes up 30%. The Latina community, the Latinx community makes up 30%. We have a very diverse county, and that's fabulous, because with this diversity comes unique perspectives, unique backgrounds, and we need to be making sure that we're taking advantage of that. When I was working with MAKE projects, I helped immigrant and refugees gain job experience, and we also had language salons, right? Imagine how wonderful it would be if we had language salons in the county where people could come practice their Spanish, speak English, practice all of the different languages that make up this community. And also we need to update our systems, right? We live right next to Silicon Valley, and yet we don't have a lot of this information available online. It is very easy to make lots of information available online in different languages so that people can access them. It's difficult to put systems in place with actual human beings, and that is very important as well. We need to have people that can connect with the communities and have shared experiences with these communities, but we also need to take baby steps of just putting the information out there in different languages in ways that people can access them. And also with the New Year event that's taking place, that's an opportunity to celebrate cultural differences, and we need more of that here in the county. We need to be able to educate the populace on the fact that these differences don't separate us, they make us unique and special, and that's what makes this county an amazing place to live, and we need to educate everybody on that. Thank you.
Thank you. This question is on housing, and we will begin with Lisa Gaucher. Housing is in crisis in this county. What are your plans to help with housing, and specifically anti-displacement policies, both specific to District 4 and countywide?
That is a great question, and in the city of East Palo Alto, I can just give you examples. East Palo Alto is leading when it comes to housing. We have a rent stabilization program. We put displacement ordinances and policies in place to protect our community members. We have assistance with rent when someone loses a job, because right now the way that the housing is and is as expensive as it is, you could be one paycheck away from being evicted or losing your housing. I see residents who have to decide, do I pay my rent, do I pay for medication, or am I paying for food? Things are just too expensive. So we have to continue to build housing, first of all, and not just, we need to build housing for all, because as we build affordable housing, and we have told our young people to go away and get your education, come back and have and work in our communities, they come back and they make too much for affordable housing. They don't make enough for market rate housing. Where is that missing middle, and where is the housing for everyone? We need to make sure we're addressing housing in that matter, but to ensure that people are not being displaced because they can't pay for medication, or that they're sick, or something tragic, or a flood has happened where they can't get to work, or the car breaks down. Let's make sure that we're being thoughtful of the community members and try to keep people housed where they are. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Then the order. My colleague, my colleague made excellent points about City of East Palo Alto, but I also want to give context. City of East Palo Alto has a $32 million budget in terms of the non-restricted funds. Our county budget is $4.3 billion. collectively, this goes back to the collective responsibility we have. We just frankly have not built enough units across all income levels. That is the frank and blunt reason. It is a supply and demand problem. And I wish every city in San Mateo County was East Palo Alto, but it's not. And we have a diversity. We have to make sure that we have someone in leadership who's going to do that. There is a bond measure, the Bay Area Housing Finance Authority, BAFA, ACA1, is going to bring $20 billion. It's going to lower the threshold from 65 to 55%. So that way cities can pass housing in a much more easier way. 9 counties, region-wide. We also have to make sure we partner with Project HomeKey, reach that zero functional homelessness that Callaghan and the board is trying to achieve. And again, we also have to be acting in good faith, right? We know that we're not living in the World War II era single-family homes situation anymore. We have young people that can't afford to live here. My generation, that is why I'm running, because so many of my friends cannot live here anymore. Folks who live in West Redwood City, grandchildren, they can't live here anymore. So for me, it's working with the state, with Project HomeKey. It's about passing bond measures. It's going to aggressively build housing across all income units. It's a HEART program, first-time homebuyer assistance, right? There's not one silver bullet to tackle this thing. But we have to all put our part, because we shouldn't have to wait for Rob Bonta to send letters to cities that don't want to build. We shouldn't have to wait for people to do the right thing. So what kind of value system do we have? Is it just about building revenue, or is it about housing people? So that's what we need to think about. This new system of values, and that leadership sets the tone, right? So that's very important.
So I think that there's 2 parts to this that I want to address. Well, personally, like I shared with you all at the beginning, I am a renter in Redwood City, and I'm an independent woman that at times I really don't know if I'm going to be able to purchase a home in this district. My parents were lucky enough to get their home about 20 years ago in Redwood City, but now the median price range is around $1.7 million. I want to make sure that we're protecting our most vulnerable, and that's why when I used to work at the County of San Mateo, I started working on the tenant protection ordinance before I went to the board. I believe that we need to protect people and empower people to, if they're experiencing mold, if they're living in unwell conditions, they should be able to voice those opinions or voice those concerns and get them addressed immediately. The next part is about, there's this whole generation that it's me and it's a lot of our colleagues that we don't necessarily qualify for affordable housing, but at the same time, we don't make that much to purchase a home here. San Mateo County has a first-time home buyer program that needs to be updated. Right now, that program, you must purchase a home around $900,000, and realistically, even in North Fair Oaks, which is our more affordable area, a home runs for $1 million. So that needs to be updated immediately, and if I'm elected into the Board of Supervisors, I will make sure that we address that. And lastly, I just want to make sure that we are building more homes and also simplifying the ADU processes in San Mateo County. There's a lot of red tape to build, to make remodeling, and people don't really want to build an ADU if it's going to take so much time and effort. So it's important that we are connecting and addressing to all of these parts of housing in order to serve everybody in the district and in the county. Thank you.
Gonna see if this one's serving us better. Okay. So I agree. There are 2 parts to this question, and in speaking with some of you before this event took place, I was hearing concerns about increases in property taxes, making it difficult to stay here as well. So it's not just those of us who rent in North Fair Oaks, which is not as affordable as I would hope, that are looking for affordable housing, but it's the people who have lived here for a long time that are worried about being displaced as well, because prices are increasing, taxes are increasing, and then it makes it more difficult to stay here. So I think that there are many facets to this, like we've started talking about a few of the solutions. However, we also need to keep in mind that the work that we want to do is going to be costly. Our budget sounds large, but the San Francisco budget is 3 times our budget. They only have 100,000 more residents than we do. So we also need to work on increasing our budget without increasing the taxes on you all and making it more difficult for everybody to stay here. Meta only pays $667 in property tax, and I can guarantee you everybody who lives here and owns a home pays more property tax than that. We need to be looking at businesses to be able to get things done and increase our budget so that we can come up and execute on these wonderful ideas that we all have. We also need to take a look at the empty spaces that are already in our district, right? There's places that have been empty for a long period of time because they're not affordable. We need policies that will help our businesses by putting people in homes and encouraging them to lower prices when they're just not within reach for those who are in this community. And then we also need to take a look at the new places that we're building, and we need to make sure that we have 30% of them dedicated to specific ranges of housing. We also need to have a database for those of us to look at to see the cost of housing in different areas. It would be lovely if we could see, hey, I have this much I can spend every month on rent or to purchase a home and pay for my mortgage, and then be able to find a space to live that way and not have to wonder if there is a space for us here. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah. I have a lot to say on this. Rental registry, tenant protections, and yesterday there was headlines news on the Daily Journal that our district representative, who has mentored people right here in this room, wants to introduce a resolution to begin criminalizing illegal camping. Our community members are not on vacation. We have 38 homeless children attending Kennedy Junior High down the street from my home. We are not criminalizing youth. We know majority of our homeless population, the displaced population, suffer from mental illness, suffer from addiction, suffer from trauma, and we cannot go down the rabbit hole of incarcerating people that need help, that are experiencing a humanitarian problem. We don't lock that up here in San Mateo County, but for some reason, those that are in leadership believe that incarcerating the displaced is going to solve the problem. I'm a homeowner. I'm secure. But those 38 kids attending that junior high with $2 million homes surrounding them, and they're returning home to vehicles and are expected to learn algebra at the same rate as those living in $1.5 million house, is just absolutely unfair. And the thought that our leadership, with all of the political experience that we have, is going to go down the rabbit hole of creating another prison pipeline. It's absolutely disconnecting for me to wake up in the morning and deliver that paper to my mother-in-law with that on the headline news. If I am elected, we are moving away from incarcerating the people. This is the most incarcerated district in San Mateo County, and if I am elected, that's going to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question will begin with Antonio Lopez. So we can see there are a lot of issues in San Mateo County. This person wants to know, how would you get things done for the county without raising property taxes?
Well, you'll be pleased to know after the 50th Speaker of the House has been elected in Congress, if they figure that out, we also have appropriations, right? We have federal and state grants. We, every year in the city of East Palo Alto, we have experience with working on appropriating. I just met with our lobbyist, Ken Brown, for East Palo Alto, right? So things like getting a field for our kids, Rose Robles, fixing our pedestrian overpass, fixing our storm drainage, right? There are state grants. Unfortunately, the state has a $68 billion budget, but going after and working with our state and local leaders to make sure that we're getting that state and federal funding, right? It's also passing bond measures, right? I spoke with a woman earlier today, has a fixed income, right? Property taxes are gonna exacerbate our lower income residents, both our younger people, but let's not forget our seniors, right? So making sure we pass progressive bond measures, for example, in East Palo Alto, Measure HH, 20,000 square feet and up parcel tax, and that parcel tax is gonna go to help bridge those gaps for STEM, helping our young kids access trade jobs, access jobs in science and engineering, because I don't wanna keep living in a community where people develop but aren't giving our kids an opportunity to serve. We have to break that gap where we can't access those engineering jobs. We also have to make sure that we're partnering, again, with our local and state officials, right? So property taxes is one tool of many that governments have. But I believe we have to really take advantage of those bond measures, those state measures, those federal appropriations, because We're a superpower in the United States, and we have so much we can give domestically. We just need the right leadership to help shake down those trees. Thank you.
Thank you. So in the county of San Mateo, we are lucky enough to have Measure K funding, which we rely on a lot to share and distribute with organizations. I really believe in collaboration. I think that we need to start collaborating and in partnership. So for example, addressing the housing issues, it's not just a county issue, but it's an everyone issue. So we really need to make sure that everybody is at the table and are also pitching in. For example, like our neighboring cities. As well as, like my colleague here was saying, relying on state and federal funding is extremely important. There's a lot of ways that people can get money, and we just have to search. But also, at the county of San Mateo, we are investing in so many programs and so many different initiatives, and we need to start asking ourselves, are those programs and initiatives really working, or are we kind of wasting money? So we need to go back and analyze everything that we're doing to see where we can cut or where we need to update. But yeah, that's how I would address it. Thank you.
Okay, so there are some similarities between my answer and those of our colleagues, one of the unfortunate circumstances of going third. So I'll focus on the things that I think are a little bit different from what my colleagues have said. Yes, grants are fabulous, and having worked in the nonprofit sector, I'm very familiar with them, and they are necessary so that we can increase our resources without increasing taxes on everybody here. I am familiar with some of the measures that my colleague was talking about. A parcel tax, though, is a property tax, so that will impact people here. So besides grants, what we can look at, and in terms of grants, there's the Inflation Reduction Act, and there's already $180 million that have been set aside in California specifically for the major problems that we're all talking about here today. So like everybody's saying, the money is there, we just have to make sure we're getting it. However, there are, like I said, many businesses and nonprofits and educational institutes in this county that are working on these issues, and we don't necessarily need to be doing the same surveys, the same work as all of these wonderful organizations. We need to be able to partner with them. If I can convince businesses in the community to give us products for free to raise money for nonprofits, I'm sure that I can work with these businesses and nonprofits on projects and things that they're already passionate about to make real effective change in the community without impacting everybody's lives and making it more difficult to stay here with increased taxes. And like I had mentioned before, there's a lot of businesses here that are not paying their fair share. I'm not talking about our mom and pop shops who are just barely keeping their doors open. I'm talking about big corporations like Meta who need to be paying more so that we don't have to. Thank you.
Yes, very important question. When we were notified they're going to start raising property taxes, I thought they're rolling up sewer costs now, raising that and attaching that to our property taxes. They raise garbage rates. They raise PG&E over $300 this month. I'm blue collar. I have fought very hard to be where I'm at today. My wife has fought very hard to be where she's at today. And the community does not deserve to be taxed the way it is. The number one rising population, displaced population, are senior citizens. I have senior citizens who live on my street, on Ruby Street, who had to receive or obtain a reverse mortgage to be able to remain in her house. How are we helping the community stay in their natural environment when we're taxing them, taxing them, taxing them? Big business. I like what Celeste had to say about that. We should be taxing those developers who see an interest here in San Mateo County. This is hot terrain here, and they should pay their fair share. The people who help build San Mateo County should not be forced to incur extra taxes and pay extra in order to remain in their natural environments. If I'm elected, big business, your taxes are going up. Thank you.
Thank you, and a great question. When I think about how do we do the work without raising taxes, public-private partnerships are going to be so important and critical. We know that is what works for many of our cities. You know, just recently, we know that we have elected officials, assembly members, and our state representatives that have access to appropriations, and they are giving money. East Palo Alto received $2 million to help with our water infrastructure, and that was through our leadership when we had conversations. I know that there are organizations like the U.S. Conference of Mayors. When you attend those meetings as an elected official, there are often times where they're talking about where there's additional revenue and money that can help with the region and within our cities. It's having those relationships and understanding what's important that is possible. Also, we need to look at our budget. Where are we spending, my colleagues have said, where are we spending where we don't need to spend? How can we evaluate that and save money? We know that taxpayers are tired of everything being put on their back. So how are we going to do the work, which is a great question, to make sure that we're not pricing everyone out of our region? Thank you for bringing up the seniors, because that is true. Very many of our seniors are on a fixed income, and they can't take these additional taxes. When we look at our homeless community and we think about the homelessness, the area where we're seeing more homeless people are from seniors who have already paid the dues, have done the work. They should be able to stay here. And let's not let taxes push them out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll begin with Maggie Cornejo. And it's about parks. Parks are very important for the Latinx community. And how do you plan to improve the parks in the county? And kind of along with that also, the streets projects. Would you support the streets projects, especially in some of the main corridors in the county?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. So, you know, like I mentioned, I grew up in North Fair Oaks, and like many of the kids that I grew up, we had no park. So we would try to play in the street or just find the best way possible. We'd have to drive in order to go to a park, and that issue is still happening now. There's one park in North Fair Oaks, not too far from here, but it's not the park that we deserve. We need to create a different park where people can actually come and feel safe, where children can play without having any like sketchy activities around them, where families can celebrate one another. And I've actually already started conversations with that. If I'm elected into office, I will be working with the sheriff's office to bring a park to North Fair Oaks, and a park that has all the things that the kids in North Fair Oaks deserve. And when it comes to the street project, I do believe, so I live in downtown Redwood City, and I see how efficient and helpful that project is every time I'm in my walks. It builds community for me. I say hi to everyone, they know who I am, and I think that is a way to help our community. So of course I would like to bring that into the rest of the district.
Thank you. So I live right next to this park in North Fair Oaks, and I agree, it's not the park that we deserve. It's also missing a lot of things, like lights. You can't see past 5 o'clock at that park because it's the winter, and there's no lights over there for kids to be able to play basketball. They're over there playing basketball in the dark at 5 o'clock after school. I also got a lot of my signatures so that I could qualify for this position at the lovely Redwood City Park. So this issue gets me very excited because I think that this is something that we can all really agree on. There's also a lot of empty spaces in North Fair Oaks alone that are owned by companies that aren't being utilized. They're just sitting there. They're not being used at all. And I think that there's ways that we can partner with these companies to convince them that we can all be good tenants of these spaces and create community parks. We need community gardens as well. We need to be able to teach our children and the community about healthy foods, be able to teach them how to get their hands dirty and to grow quality food for everybody as well. And this is where I thrive, right? This is collaboration. This is just getting people together. I believe the North Fair Oaks Park was actually built through a lot of donations because there's a lot of lovely mosaics in front of that park from different people who donated to that park. I know that in Redwood City, there was a lot of donations to make the musical aspect of that park as well. So this is an easy issue, I think, that we can really execute quickly on. There's also issues, I know Maggie has a dog, I have a dog. A lot of these parks don't allow dogs either. So what can we do to have separate spaces for those of us who have our furry friends and want to be able to take them to different parks? Redwood City has some spaces, but I think that we can do better in this, and I think that this is something that we can solve fairly easily. Thank you.
What's the streets project? You asked a question about it, but what is it?
The streets project, I believe such as is going on in Middlefield currently, is safer for pedestrians, bikes, and also still have traffic. And we will go to Paul Bucanegra now. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great project. It just took a very long time, and small businesses took a huge hit just to get those bike lanes in there, but it was needed. It's going to save lives. So I'm a big supporter of parks. I really enjoy Red Morton Park, where I live down the street from, Lori Duncan Park, Solstaff Park. I thrive there with my wife and my dogs. My nieces and nephews love to have birthday parties. It costs $100 to rent one of those benches at Red Morton Park. But my family come as far as Tracy and Daly City to have their birthday parties here at Red Morton Park. I think it's extremely important that every community have access to a park such as that. Equity. Equity is something that we have to continue to advocate for. North Fair Oaks is just moving on a project for a park. It's another form of displacement. You're good enough to work here, but you're not good enough to enjoy yourself here. We need to bridge that gap between the have and have-nots, and I love the idea of community gardens. Celeste, you're on fire today. Community gardens, it brings us together. I have a huge garden at my house. I love growing all of my own natural food. Right now, with these apartments going up, our next generation is gonna miss that opportunity of growing their own chile, their own tomate, cucumber. We grow everything. I can just go on and on. It's important that we have, if we don't have community parks, that we establish community gardens where communities from different neighborhoods can come together, grow their food, and enjoy something that they grew together. That is how we bridge the gap here, and the idea of safer streets is a great idea. It slows down traffic, and it allows for people to get out of their vehicles and get on those bicycles and utilize those bike lanes that costed these small businesses so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So great question. During COVID, our parks was what we gravitated towards. So we could get out and get our fresh air and be able to walk and commune in a safe manner. Every community deserves to have parks. Redwood City has done a great job. I too enjoy Red Morton Park, where you can see Shakespeare in the park, or kids playing football, or families enjoying a barbecue, and the senior center is there. That is what is important. East Palo Alto just celebrated a year without any homicides in our community. And that happened because of our Measure C that created a fit zone that put police in the parks that were the most vulnerable to ride bikes and skate and play with the kids. That's what's important. So if you have a park where people are not feeling comfortable, let's work together and partner and take back our parks from the criminal element, because they shouldn't be able to have pure access. Not only that, when you think about community parks, we think about San Mateo County has so many parks in the region. I know at one point the county used to provide shuttles to take you from the community to some of the other parks where you could hike, and we need to continue to do that. Because again, parks are important for our health, our mental health, and our physical health. So let's continue to do those things. And when we're building development, we can make sure that those developers who are building apartments are putting small parks within those developments so that people have opportunities to go and get some outdoor and fresh air. For some of our apartment owners, Woodland Properties, they created 2 pocket parks within the region where we didn't have parks, and it is making a huge difference. So let's continue to partner. Let's think about how we can partner to take back parks, and let's figure out, like my colleague said, where there's empty space, let's utilize that empty space. And I do agree, I keep hearing from dog owners that saying they need dog parks, and it is important to get our furry friends out of the house as well. Thank you for the question.
Well said, Lisa, and everyone as well. I want to take a moment to step back. We're in District 4, right? This is a community that is working class, that is diverse, that is hard hit. Many of the reasons we don't have parks because we prioritize housing, right? So for me, how do we find that balance in housing and parks? That's why the situation we're in. For me, really proud to have been part of the Urban Forest Master Plan, the first of its kind for East Palo Alto, making sure that we're not just doing tree management, but increasing canopy coverage. That's gonna be a big asset to parks too. East Palo Alto only has 14% of canopy coverage compared to Palo Alto's 42%. So when we're talking about parks, we also have to talk about green lining. That Middlefield smog, think of all the kids and pedestrians and single moms that take up those fumes, that inhale all that, right? So carbon sequestration, making sure that we can have trees all around this community, working with organizations like Canopy that are doing the work. Also, community benefits, making sure that when we go to developers, parks are a priority, right? And given our beautiful location, there's going to be a lot of appetite to continue to build despite rising construction costs. Accessibility, partner with Magical Bridge, right? We have 2 parks that in East Palo Alto, we're going to partner with Magical Bridge, making sure that it's wheelchair accessible, but also meeting other accessibility needs, such as neurodivergency, mental health. And finally, when we had the tragic situation of Mr. Ralph Fields, when I lift up his name, who was shot and killed in East Palo Alto, we installed cameras in the parks, right? And I look forward to, as mayor this year, installing smart cameras. So that way when there are crimes that occur, there's a deterrence because folks know they're being watched, right? So we have to make sure that our parks are well lit, well safe, and I look forward to, as your supervisor, creating more and investing more infrastructure to really enhance the quality of life in this community.
Thank you. We have a question, Sheriff, and Celeste Brevard will begin this round. So the County Board of Supervisors recently started a civilian oversight for the Sheriff's Office. How will you support civilian oversight of the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office and the jail system? And what is your position on the Sheriff's cooperation or non-cooperation with ICE?
Thank you for this question. So I think this is a question all of these candidates up here have been getting a lot because it's a very important question. So I think that oversight is very important. I think that establishing trust with our police and those who are meant to serve and protect us is really important. I also have seen communities like communities in Brooklyn that have safety alliances where they not only have an oversight board or something to that effect, but they empower the citizens in the community to work with them and help with crimes that don't necessarily require police presence. And that's a really, really thriving partnership in that community. It's helped lower crime rates, both homicidal crime rates and more petty thefts as well, because the people who are partnering with the police live in the community. They speak the language. They know the problems of the community. They know where the crime is taking place. And sometimes that police presence isn't necessary. And when I say they work with police, there's oftentimes plainclothes police officers that will shadow them, but the statistics show oftentimes the police don't even have to interfere whatsoever in these situations. And empowering the community and creating these partnerships, again, between the police and between our citizens is important not only for safety, but for trust, right? If you don't trust those who are supposed to serve and protect, it makes dangerous situations for them and then for the community as well. And I'm so sorry, what was the second part of the question?
The Sheriff's cooperation or non-cooperation with ICE, your position on that?
I don't think that we should cooperate with ICE. There's enough problems that our immigrant families are facing without having to worry about ICE. I think, and I received a counter argument of, well, what happens when that one person who is a small representation, does a crime, goes to jail, comes out, and is an immigrant that should be deported? That's not the 1% that should determine whether or not we work with ICE. A lot of immigrants are just hardworking community members that want to create a better life for themselves here, and we should not be working with ICE. We need to have other systems in place when there's that 1% that need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. My name is Paul Bocanegra, and I am co-founder of Civilian Oversight right here. I was Vice Chair Emeritus to Fix in San Mateo. Civilian Oversight saves lives and acts just like those smart cameras as a deterrence for people to not de-escalate situations. We have 4 community members in the last year who have died in our sheriff's custody. That's a problem. That's a problem. Majority of the incarcerated population are 4th District. The #1 incarcerated population in the adult system, Latinos. The majority incarceration population that dominates the juvenile criminal justice system, Latinos. Majority of the foster system, when their parents have been deported, have been Latinos. As a Latino, it hurts me that we have to work to create a system like civilian oversight because we know a system is not equal. But that vision has come true. And I believe that there are loopholes to cooperating with ICE that still exist. We can still deport through a judicial warrant. This was part of the scare tactics that were being used to deter us from seeking civilian oversight, a law that we were not exercising. A judicial warrant allows ICE to come in and utilize their own federal monies to deport someone who is a threat to the public safety as well as the country. I don't believe that we are reforming a system that we know is unequal, that we should put so much trust in there that we are going to deport someone for being charged with a crime. That was wrong. There were too many kids being left on the streets when their parents were being deported, and majority of those kids looked like me and spoke the same language. And it was not healthy or conducive with the humanitarian problem that exists when we deport. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. So for the civilian oversight, I think everybody needs to be transparent. All government needs some transparency. So to say that I am supportive of the civilian oversight, as a mother of an African American young man who has had his fair share of dealing with the police, not because he was doing something, but because of the color of his skin, is a clear indication that we need to do something about the oversight. At one point as a mom, it broke my heart when my son said to me, "Why did God make me black?" That was not because of the way he's raised in his household. It's the way that he's seen in community. He was raised by me. He has he's a good kid. So that's why it's important. And on the heels of the Black Lives Matter movement, where so many individuals were killed by the hands of the police that should have been protecting, we need an oversight. Not just for the sheriffs, but for others as well. Transparency in government is what I'm measured by. At work, we're going to be transparent. So there's nothing wrong with that. And going to the ICE question, and forgive me for being emotional, that's my child. In 2019, when I was the mayor of East Palo Alto, and we were having some issues with ICE coming into communities and really terrorizing community, you know, it was East Palo Alto that gave our immigrant communities cards so they would know how not to answer the doors, or if you're in the community, how not to talk to people, and so that they could really understand their rights. We need to continue to do that to ensure that our residents are protected. Thank you so much.
I want to thank Lisa and everyone, and Paul, his leadership for Fixing San Mateo. I'm proud of the direction this county is going, and as Lisa so eloquently stated, you know, I cannot separate myself wearing a suit and tie to being a young Latino man. You know, I'm not just the mayor of East Palo Alto. When I step out on the street, Redwood City, North Fair Oaks, I'm just one of many community residents. And it's my responsibility with the lived experience I've had, the lived experience that Lisa has shared, that we be a voice for those voiceless folks. So I'm certainly in support of the sheriff oversight, and I would also add the right to subpoena power. Because for me, I don't want to, as a legislator, I have a general rule, I don't want to pass things without any teeth in it, right? If we're going to pass something that's going to really be a watershed moment, let's have the mechanism by which, and God forbid, I don't want to invoke that power. Let's just be very clear on that. I don't want to see another tragedy that Paul mentioned, another death, another racial profiling, right? We're tired of that. So much of East Palo Alto residents deal with that trauma to this day. So I don't want that to be invoked. And I also don't buy the argument, respectfully, that if we invoke that, we'll see a drove of detectives leave, right? Because we just want, as Lisa said, transparency, right? In any profession, any job that you don't have, someone's supervising you, right? Someone's watching you. So why do we privilege out for officers that carve out? To me, it's just about being fair. It's about being mindful that we're in a majority minority community with Black and Latino and Pacific Islander folks in District 4. And if we want to create trust, right, that's the other thing in government. If we want to create trust, if we want people to come out and vote, if we want people to know that their government serves them, we need to make them feel that we're listening. And part of that listening is creating tools and mechanisms by which, if, God forbid, something happens, which I hope it never does, that there is justice, right? And going back to the ICE question, we should do it on a minimal basis because I do not believe ICE is the right response, right? East Palo Alto is proudly a sanctuary city, and as a supervisor, I want to make sure that I'm advocating not just for the folks who are getting deported, but for the families who have to suffer in the absence of those folks.
So I'm going to address this question with the ICE and then move on to the next part. So when I was growing up in North Fair Oaks and going to Garfield, it was very normal for us to attend school and a kid would share, oh, at 5 a.m., someone picked up my dad or my mom. I went through that phase, and unfortunately, I was also impacted by that. So I know what it's like to have ICE actually come and separate your family. So absolutely not. I would not collaborate with ICE at all. And if anything, I think that we need to embrace our immigrant community, set them up for success, provide the tools that they need, not only in language, but entrepreneurship. There's so much rich, beautiful culture that the immigrant community brings to San Mateo County. And that's actually one of the reasons I'm so proud to be from District 4 and the county, because we have so many people from different backgrounds, and it's okay to be here and people feel safe. So as your next supervisor, I want to unite people, not divide them. Going into the oversight, I'm really pleased that the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors approved an advisory committee, and I really believe in the importance of collaborating. I think that the Sheriff, Christina Corpus, has done a great job in her first year. As you all know, she's the first Latina sheriff to be elected in the county, in the state of California. And I'm really honored to be here and sitting in front of all of you and say that I'm the only candidate that has had her endorsement. And we've already started talking about how we're going to embrace and collaborate for the better of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll return to Paul Bocanegra to start this question. This is on children today.
Oh, I went first. Thank you.
Yeah. Children should be a priority. The question on daycare and childcare, there was funding for daycare during the pandemic, and that's ended. How can you help working parents with daycare and childcare?
Big business. I know you're not going to like this. Developers, you have to pay your fair share. You have to assist us in creating a program or a model that allows universal child care. That's one of the largest chunks of money that comes from the underserved community is child care, up to $2,000. If not, you're taking a risk putting your child in someone else's hands that you have to do in order to survive. I believe that there has to be a model of universal child care. That almost passed, but big business invested a lot of money to sidestep them paying their fair share to support universal child care. We have a foster system that if it resembles our way of looking at youth, it's not good. We spend $12,000, one of my canvassers that came out last week, $1,000 from EPA for her daughter Aurora per year. $12,000 total per year. We're spending up to $2 million per year per kid incarcerated. There's something wrong with that system. We're not looking at our youth like they're in need of help. Instead, we're looking at them to clean up the problems that we've created for our population today. We're right here talking about reform and new ideas and creating programs because we know the status quo is not equal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Again, another great question. I'm a mother. More importantly, I'm a grandmother of a 3-year-old who lives with me. So I get to see firsthand the experience that my daughter goes through with my grandson. First, it was trying to just find a daycare spot. There are not enough spots. And I know that the San Mateo County is looking to increase the number of spots available for childcare. Then we have to look at the cost. Like, if childcare is going to be more expensive to send someone than what you're bringing home, it's a barrier. So how do we change that and look at where the resources are going to come from? My daughter works for an organization that pays her a stipend. More companies need to pay a stipend and figure out how they're going to be helpful. Instead of Google closing down childcare for their workers, let's open more worker facilities at these companies. Because if you're able to take your child to where you work, you don't have to worry so much about where they are. You're just going home at the one time. I know that Supervisor Ellenberg, who's a close friend of mine who's in Santa Clara County, she used some of the one-time money to make sure that there are more spots for childcare. Our children are our most vulnerable assets. They're growing and they're going to be our future leaders. We need to make sure that there's space for them, not only in daycare, but we need to increase pre-K and making sure that they're going into kindergarten ready to go. Again, Camden James is the name, that 3-year-old that runs my life, and I know it's making me look at childcare and daycare very differently, and I am grateful that I can work from home sometimes and take care of him when the company closes. But thank you.
And Camden's a cutie. He comes to the city council meetings sometimes. But all that aside, it starts from the state, right? When the state universalized pre-K education, that put a strain on early child care facilities because they lost on funding. That's a good problem to have. But that's an example of government putting in place a policy but having an unanticipated consequence. So working with our state officials to make sure we close those funding deficits. One of the things that I learned when I was working for Josh Becker was how little we pay mothers for paid family leave and disability. Like, it is paltry. It is like in a couple $100s. And in Silicon Valley, see how far that stretches you, right? I think we get parking tickets that high at this point. Another statistic that's very sobering. There are low-income families in this community that spend up to 14%, you ready for this? On diapers. On diapers, right? Spending that much, right? So thinking of those low-hanging fruit policies to really mitigate the disposable income that our low-income families spend. The county is offering through the library system, thank God, free diapers. We also have, shout out to Ms. Lisa Moody, Babies to Basics. You have nonprofits that are providing those services. Thirdly, my colleague mentioned it, early child care facilities. The good news is we do have more than we've recorded. The problem is they're not licensed. There are only about a third child care facilities that are at capacity now. So if you drive through East Palo Alto, North Fair Oaks, I'm sure we'll see the signs of Lydia's or Luisa's child care. Let's get those folks up and running. Let's get them above board, making sure that they have the licensing, the permitting to go after that funding. And finally, going back to measures, I'm really proud of looking at peers like Mayor James Coleman in South San Francisco. They proposed a Measure C on the ballot to really bring in more money for early child care. So it's going to be a combination of private, state support, looking at local initiatives, and the county with its $4 billion budget, I think is really uniquely poised to tackle this crisis.
Thank you. So I have a niece who is 8 months old, and so I'm officially a tia, which is an auntie. My brother and my sister-in-law actually had to go on a wait list while she was like 4 months pregnant, and I was like, why 4 months? And so the wait list is so long. And then she gave birth, and they had still not been accepted, but luckily by the time that they went back to work, they were able to squeeze into a childcare. So that's just many of the barriers that parents are facing. I really believe that if we're going to be supporting housing and apartment complexes and to be in our community, we also need to require childcare either adjacent or in the apartment complex, similar to the affordable housing building that is being built on Middlefield Junction. So that building will include affordable housing that is here in North Fair Oaks. I think that is a great model of what we need to continue doing, as well as making sure that it's training and good qualified childcare. We don't want to just drop off our kids with any kind of childcare. We want to make sure that they're learning or that they're developing. I was a kid of North Fair Oaks who I didn't really learn English until I was in middle school. And that's just unacceptable. So as the county supervisor, we also need to have a say in that and make sure that we're setting up our kids for success from the start. So that's why one of my priorities is investing in children and families. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about preparing our next generation to be leaders. Thank you.
So this issue also brings up a larger issue, which is we don't really put enough emphasis and importance on taking care of our youth, but also taking care of the fathers and mothers. We don't have guaranteed paternity or maternity leave a lot of times, and that's something that is just unheard of in a lot of places in the world. So that's something that we also need to take a look at. And I agree with a lot of my colleagues here. We want to make sure that the child care is quality child care. So yes, we can have lovely incentives for them to get licensed, but we also could empower a lot of people, right? This sounds like a supply and demand issue. Why don't we have training programs so that we can train people on how to open up their own daycares? There's some lovely daycares in my neighborhood. This is not something you need to have a whole other space for. This is something that a lot of people can do in their own homes. Let's train these people and empower people in our community to offer quality care for our youth. I work at Stanford, and we have something called the Bing Nursery School, and that specializes in early childhood education. And they recently hosted a lot of different representatives from city and nation and at the federal level. And guess what? Not one person from California attended. Not one person from California attended. We haven't solved this problem. We have good schools, we have good daycares, but that doesn't mean we should stop there. We still should be learning. We still should be seeing how we can improve these institutions and solving these problems through training programs, licensing, and also teaching everybody and empowering everybody on how to solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for questions. So we'll now listen to the candidates' closing statements, and they each have 1.5 minutes, and we'll go in reverse order. So we'll begin with Celeste Brevard and finish with Paul Bocanegra. So Celeste?
Sorry, you have to hear from me twice in a row. So I just want to thank everybody for coming out again in this weather and on a Saturday, and I want to thank my colleagues here. We have a lot of endorsement interviews that we do, and somebody said, well, what are you going to do if you don't win? This is a very contentious race. And I said, is it? I said, I'm pretty lucky to be running with these lovely candidates. As you can see, we all get along, we all respect each other's ideas, which is something that gives me a lot of hope for the county, regardless of who obtains this position. But what I will say is it's going to be the differences in execution on these positions that are really going to make the difference, right? So I have the experience, like I said, working for large institutions like Stanford and the United Nations. I understand how difficult it can be to get things done, and I have the experience to do that. I can bring this international lens and international insight, my experience with people of different backgrounds and diverse opinions, and I have a track record of really opening up communication with teams and with people in the organization and outside the organization. I have a background in communications. I've led teams of over 100 people and as small as 2 people. I've overseen many different profit and loss statements and budgets and always had positive outcomes. And so that means that I've worked in different organizations and achieved the same outcomes. And that's something that I can do here for the county. And I'm confident that I'm the right person to be building these bridges between the nonprofits, the businesses, and our higher educational institutes, because I've worked inside all of them. I understand how all of these people think. I understand that they think there's differences in their approaches, but a lot of times it's just educating people on the issues and showing them how working together is going to solve the problem sooner and in a way that will benefit everybody. So thank you very much again for coming out.
Thank you for being here, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for giving us this opportunity. So reflecting on my journey as a daughter of Mexican immigrants, I never envisioned myself working for the county because it became evident that there was no representation of a female Mexican leader within the county. Having embarked on this journey and now working within the county, I am committed to changing that narrative, and that's why I'm here today. representation matters, and I believe it is crucial for individuals like me to serve in these leadership roles. During this campaign, a common response from district residents is that they want to see new leadership in a fresh perspective, which is what I bring to the table. As the only candidate who has worked for the Board of Supervisors, my background ensures that I am the candidate that will get the job done. I'm eager to bring my policy expertise to address the challenges facing District 4. I am also proud to have the endorsements of Sheriff Christina Corpus, Supervisor Noelia Corzo, Redwood City Council members Elmer Martinez, Chris Sturkin, East Palo Alto Council member Ruben Abrica, and many more elected officials and community leaders. If elected, I will be the first female supervisor of Mexican descent in San Mateo County history. Let that sink in for a moment. San Mateo County needs to be led by a supervisor who values real voices and validates your concerns while never losing sight of what really matters, which is to protect and enhance the health, safety, and wellness of all members of our community. And with that, I ask for your vote on March 5th. Thank you.
Said. I'm going to ask you all to think about what's at stake. Think about when you drive into Tracy, driving to the East Bay, how flooded and congested that traffic is. The fact that we only have 40% of our folks in this county who can afford to live here. I think about the single mother who's looking at that past rent due envelope in her mailbox, wondering how she's going to pay it. I think about our kids behind bars and who's speaking for them. I have a vision for this county to be more just, to be united with the North County to stop this divide, that can bring resources together for all walks of life, that can build upon the legacy of Mr. Slocum, the legacy of our supervisors, to tackle affordable housing, to protect the women's right to choose, to making sure our young people have opportunities to stay here. And I've been blessed to have been endorsed by Corzo, by Canapa, by Planned Parenthood, 100% approval rating, right? For me, this is about a vision for what kind of county we have at stake and the crisis that is looming before us. And I have been there for my community when tragedy struck and when it continued to strike, through funerals, through floods, through outages, and I will be there showing up for each and every one of you. And I'm excited to represent you. It will be the honor of my lifetime to represent you. And so you're attached to the wonderful responsibility of choosing an elected supervisor, but I know that this county is gonna need leadership that's gonna roll up their sleeves, that's gonna be able to stick their neck out there for the issues that matter. So I thank you for your time, and I look forward to continuing to pound pavement and fight for your vote.
Thank you so much. So again, if you look at experience, I have been an elected official in the city of East Palo Alto for now, I'm in my 12th year, 3 terms. I've served as mayor and vice mayor 3 times. I've been able to lead in the time of crisis. I've helped the city to get to the place where we achieved no homicides in the city. That took all of the council, but I was on the council at that time. I'm the senior vice president of inclusion and belonging, so that means I'm an executive within an organization, leading a team that works on workforce development, education, racial justice and equity and health, with a focus on health equity, which will be very important to our county. I am proud to say that I have been endorsed by the incumbent Warren Slocum. I have received the endorsement from Anna Eshu, from Josh Becker, and from 2 other Board of Supervisor members, David Pine and Ray Mueller, have also endorsed my campaign. In addition, I have received the sole endorsement from the San Mateo County Democratic Central Committee, and I am proud to say I've also received the sole endorsement from the San Mateo County Labor Council. I care about this community, and that's why I've been an elected official this long. I'm thinking about what the county is going to look like not only tomorrow, but years down the road, and what this county is going to look like for my grandson. We sit here and we talk about first. Once elected, I will be the first Black woman directly elected to the Board of Supervisors in San Mateo County. We know that Rose Jacobs Gibson was there, but she was not directly appointed. She was appointed, not elected. We should not be talking about first. We should be talking about how we are going to make a difference and bring everyone together. I want to be the supervisor for everyone, which is important, and how do we bring our community and our county and this district together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Women League of Voters. Thank you so much to the community that's come out to listen to this wonderful crowd of visionaries. What does change look like? That's what my question is to everyone. The same has got us to the very issues we've been discussing solutions to today. That's the same. That's experience. I don't have Slocum's endorsement. And after the statements today about his resolution, I can assure you I won't get his endorsement. But I'm an agent of change. When I see something wrong, I call it. The school to prison pipeline, everyone has endorsed my work, even the Democratic Central Committee. The ICE ordinance, I've worked with Sheriff Corpus and Simser, got it done. Civilian oversight, I ran with Christina Corpus, our sheriff. I stood on the streets with her. I donated money. She said she was going to support civilian oversight. She didn't. But the people still got it done. When the people want something, the people advocate for change and we get the job done. That is what's sitting in front of you today. Esperanza, hope for everyone. If I have made it to this seat after all that I have been through, your children can make it right here. And what are we gonna do when your child makes it here? I'm a child of the system. Both of my parents perished as I sat in a cage for a crime I didn't commit. And I'm still here. Esperanza, cambio, change. That's what I stand for. That's what I'm an agent of. And that's what you will get. No more of the past. It is time to envision a more positive and humanitarian future. Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank I'd like to thank the candidates and all of the volunteers for their participation. Thank you. I'd also like to especially thank you, the audience, for being here, taking time to better inform yourselves. And as a reminder, be sure to look up additional information about the candidates, other races, and both state and local, and measures, and there is a ballot proposition as well. All of that is on vote411.org. And please look for the replay of this video. Have friends and family that weren't here watch it. It'll be also accessible through vote411.org and also the League's website, which is lwvssmc.org. That's League of Women Voters, South San Mateo County.org. Thank you so much.